What do you think about her tweets?
This is the left 101. When it doesn't go my way, it's racist, and any black man or woman involved in the process who didn't agree with them, obviously they're irrelevant. So that was the diss. Just go wham, just complain. I mean, that's what children do. They never can accept a decision. And affirmative action the case was even being brought up because Asian Americans felt that they were not getting a fair opportunity. So rich white people didn't have.
You're going to love this one because the universe just delivered a crossover nobody expected, but secretly everyone wanted. AOC steps into the spotlight with fire, passion, and conviction, ready to command the stage, when suddenly Tyrus appears like a surprise plot twist, pure sarcasm in human form. With almost no effort, he turns her grand dramatic moment into a roast so sharp it should come with a viewer discretion advised warning. From there, the exchange unfolds with chaotic perfection, almost too wild to believe, as if the universe itself decided to spice things up for our entertainment.
Anything to talk about in terms of merit, you just blame it on rich white people. And it's been a cushion that's been allowed in this country for a long time. And now as you see more of, that's the new pillow. My pillow's got nothing on the new pillow of blame rich white people, because you can rest your head on it in any argument. Bring any argument up with me, anything. Ask me any question. How are the Knicks doing this year? Well, why am I supposed to know that? I'm not a rich white person. See what I'm saying?
You're going to enjoy this. Remember to subscribe. It really helps more than most people realize. Big, spectacular moments have always mattered in politics. Someone steps on stage, gestures like a soap opera star, and convinces the audience that history is unfolding before them. AOC, who never simply walks into a room, thrives on this kind of theatricality. She enters with such energy it feels like she's about to deliver the State of the Union, even if she's only grabbing a cup of coffee.
Affected or are completely out of touch of everything. This is a big country. Some people, regardless of high inflation, are still gonna fly to go. It has nothing to do with lower class Americans who are struggling to pay bills, or people just make their decisions. It's just they're so out of touch, and they worry about other things, the wrong things like pardons and perceptions and how they're looked at, instead of like just shutting up, step out of your little bubble. Maybe close the safe spaces, walk out on this crunchy green stuff called grass, and get involved in the world and see that
everything AOC says drips with drama. Every disagreement delivered like she's warning the world of a meteor strike tomorrow, but this time, the spotlight didn't stay on her. She quickly found herself sidelined as Tyrus became the real star. Yes, Tyrus, the man who, with a single raised eyebrow, can turn intense political tension into sharp humor, delivering punchlines that leave the audience speechless.
no, of course they didn't read the decision. And again, these are all successful men and women of color who all have educations, who are sitting on top of the mountain calling foul. Like, this is just the par for the course. It is just, what is the narrative? Oh, that's the way we're going with it? But it was nice to see white men get a break. You know what? Because you've had a rough year. They started blaming some stuff on white women. So you guys get a little bit of the feel.
Poor AOC never saw it coming. You'd think a seasoned politician would know better than to overplay her hand when a master of sarcasm is about to take the stage. Yet she charged in, convinced the audience would be inspired, enlightened, and maybe even ready to put her face on a $10 bill. Armed with facts, dramatic pauses, and the familiar "I've cracked humanity's code" energy, she surged forward, completely unaware of the hilarious disaster unfolding right behind her.
And we have fan mail, and I just can't listen to those Nate Silvers and these Saliza people just bites into this glorious show. AOC. What? She's kind of fun in a silly but earnest, wrong but adorable way. She's like your daughter when she comes back from her first year at Brown, full of half-baked, half opinions, in need of some gentle, patient deprogramming. But people have to realize new faces doesn't mean...
Her speech, covering wealth disparity, looming climate disasters, and unchecked corporate greed, felt straight out of a Marvel origin story. Every problem was painted in sweeping, dramatic strokes, casting humanity's future as perilous and herself as the towering heroine. You could almost hear Avengers-style music swell with each perfectly timed gesture, as if destiny whispered in her ear. Yet the audience responded with polite, robotic applause, the kind given out of obligation. AOC, of course, beamed as if receiving a standing ovation. But such grand performances leave room for humor, and Tyrus thrives there. No stat binders, no doom-laden analogies. He doesn't need apocalyptic scenarios to grab attention. His weapon is simpler, faster, sharper, pure comedy.
Ocasio-Cortez, she responded to this ruling on Twitter as well. She says, if the Supreme Court was serious about their ridiculous color blindness claims, they would have abolished legacy admissions, aka affirmative action for the privileged. 70% of Harvard's legacy applicants are white. SCOTUS didn't touch that, which would have impacted them and their patrons. Does she have a point there?
She used the word ludicrous. That was cool. That was new. But again, it's the same argument. No matter what you're doing, that it's all white people's fault, and it's just such a great talking point, to the point where it's just literally, if it was a dying horse.
Tyrus lounged with the calm confidence of someone about to topple a Jenga tower with a single sarcastic tap, while AOC constructed paragraph after paragraph like a tower doomed to fall. She leaned into the microphone as if it were a confidant, timed every pause like a TED speaker, and paced the stage with the overly serious gait politicians love. Each pause was a silent plea for applause, which instead came as awkward, polite claps, the kind you give a friend nervously trying karaoke. Ironically, the more she ramped up her intensity, the more vulnerable she became to the one thing that could shatter her facade. Tyrus, entering with the uniquely devastating hammer of humor only he could wield.
Fresh idea or issue in her life. The reason why she gets along with Bernie is because she's like an 80-year-old leftist in a used bookstore. I mean, she may look fresh, but she's as stale as an abandoned futon on the street. It's like, I listen to her, I go, I heard that at Berkeley in 1983. So their problem is, and the reason why they don't have any ideas is
The irony is that AOC thrives on control, crafting her identity by setting the scene, pacing the speech, and shaping the story exactly how she wants, expecting the audience to follow like devoted disciples. But humor ignores rules. Timing, structure, and dramatic arcs matter little. Her solemn tone shatters when the audience bursts into laughter, striking fast and precise. Tyrus, armed with a metaphorical slingshot, waited to topple the first brick and ruin the show. Her words tugged at emotions, yet the room was tense with anticipation. Humiliation doesn't require yelling or chaos. It often comes subtly at the moment someone casually exposes the fragility of a performance. That's Tyrus's strength. He doesn't storm in. He uses sharp, clean, devastating humor to dismantle everything.
Break from doing nothing to get into a beef with the Twitter chief. On Tuesday, she tweeted, LMAO at a billionaire earnestly trying to sell people on the idea that free speech is actually an $8 a month subscription plan. That's a reference to Musk's plan to charge people $8 a month for verified blue checkmark status. But he hit back tweeting, your feedback is appreciated. Now pay $8.
The stage couldn't have been more perfect. Unaware that the room was slipping through her fingers like sand, AOC was fully theatrical, reveling in her own performance. Cheers had dwindled to polite taps. Tyrus sat grinning, knowing his joke would land like a knockout, while eye rolls stacked higher than her talking points. Then he leaned forward, and here's the twist. AOC wasn't even present. Somehow, that made it even funnier. Mocking someone remotely, making people laugh and nod is a different skill, and Tyrus executed it flawlessly. He turned her carefully staged political act into a drawn-out late-night improv, delivering a quick, precise jab at her habit of turning any room into a dramatic declaration about how 3 tweets could collapse society.
AOC has 61% approval rating for Democrats, right? The highest of any Democrat unless they've been elected president. So if your new brand ambassador is going to be AOC, then I think it's more...
According to Tyrus, AOC probably rehearses her remarks in front of the mirror before brushing her teeth, her toothbrush looking utterly offended as her arms flail and numbers whirl around her. That single imagined photo alone shattered her meticulously planned theatrical act. He then targeted her signature habit, the heavy use of metaphors, analyzing them with sharp, precise humor. The notion that she could claim spilling a glass of water proves sea level rise was mocked mercilessly. Corporate greed must be targeting society if her Uber is late, and capitalism clearly fails humanity if her phone dips below 20%. Her grand analogies instantly lost their weight, seeming more like the work of an overstressed theater student. Tyrus suggested that even when she discusses her lunch, she might be framing it as the announcement of humanity's doom. Yes, I'll take the avocado toast, he quipped. Nothing captures our generation's struggles quite like overpriced guacamole. He doesn't need embellishment. His skill lies in exposing what's already there. Her tone, routines, and relentless drive to turn everyday moments into political campaigns until all that seriousness collapses into pure, lighthearted humor.
They're not meant for you, right? But then you have to ask, okay, then what is this debt forgiveness? Who is it meant for? And when you look at the data, it's upper, white, middle class, liberal women. This ain't welfare, right? These are well-to-do people. It's a bribe for Democrats on the backs of plumbers, truckers, and everyone else who actually does a real job, unlike me. AOC is the symbol of the entitled sponge. She complains about student loans.
What appeared to be strong leadership at one point turned out to be just theatrical. Once you notice it, you can't stop seeing it that way. Tyrus continued after her speeches, immediately shifting focus to how she uses social media, since AOC treats Twitter like a presidential pulpit. He joked that if the Wi-Fi in Washington ever went down, she would surely post in all caps about a national conspiracy, calling it the biggest attack on democracy in recent memory simply because her Instagram live paused. That image made the weight of her message melt into utter nonsense, portraying her less as a congresswoman leading a movement and more as a comedian playing a theatrical neighbor with a flair for mischief. Tyrus wasn't done. Not even close. He reserved one of his sharpest remarks for the contrast between her well-groomed lifestyle and AOC's relentless alarmism. After all, the best way to suggest the globe is on fire is to attend a climate change photo session fully clothed in fashionable clothing.
Bulldog. Thanks to Cat Temp, I know everything about French Bulldogs. And one thing I know, they are so expensive. They're more expensive than any college tuition. That you got to take care of them. They're adorable dogs, but she owns a Tesla and she owns a French Bulldog, and she wants you or your dad, the electrician, to forgive her student loan. That's BS. Turn in the Tesla, sell the dog.
Tyrus highlighted the paradox that despite constantly portraying capitalism as the ultimate enemy, AOC navigated and even benefited from it with surprising ease, a painfully accurate detail that amplified the irony. His sharpest critique likened listening to her lectures to being trapped in a classroom where the lecturer has been speaking for weeks, forgetting the material along the way. You never know where the lesson began or where it's going, yet you must take meticulously organized notes. With that, he summed up her entire speaking style: noisy, intricate, dramatic, and ultimately exhausting. The best part? She wasn't present to respond, giving Tyrus full freedom to stretch out his jokes and twist the knife further without interruption. Each punchline landed longer and harder, proving he needed no additional facts. His razor-sharp sarcasm alone was enough to transform the room's energy.
$80 per theater. I mean, I paid $80 in a theater, and there wasn't even a movie playing.
Wow. What do you mean?
I don't know. You know, it's no surprise. Who would go see a movie that's the opposite of entertaining? There's nothing entertaining about that. Michael Moore's colonoscopy is more entertaining than that because there's probably more twists. But it does show you how great it is to be a progressive in a liberal biased culture. She really doesn't do her job, right? She makes movies, she goes to galas, she sits for glossy butt-kissing interviews and
By the time Tyrus finished his takedown, AOC's carefully cultivated image as an unstoppable political force had been thoroughly transformed into a running joke, one that made the audience laugh quietly at first and then openly as the implications sank in. Every meticulously crafted analogy she had employed, each apocalyptic prediction about society's collapse, and every exaggerated gesture that had once been meant to convey urgency suddenly became comedic material. What had been intended as dramatic gravitas was now a blueprint for humor. The shift didn't come from shouting matches or public confrontations. It emerged from Tyrus's precision, timing, and the subtle way he exposed inconsistencies in her narrative. Each sarcastic comment highlighted the contrast between her carefully rehearsed theatrics and the reality of her statements, turning what she intended as authority into amusement. The audience quickly noticed the irony. The person who had once commanded attention and projected unstoppable energy now seemed almost theatrical, like a character from a satirical sketch rather than a policymaker. Her every dramatic pause, intended to emphasize the gravity of wealth disparity, climate crises, or corporate greed, instead drew attention to the overextension of her own performance. Even the apocalyptic warnings she delivered, meant to evoke urgency, were reframed as comedic exaggerations. In this light, her confidence appeared inflated, almost cartoonish, as if she were unaware of how the perception had changed. Once the audience recognized this new reality, there was no turning back. What had previously conveyed authority now triggered laughter, and the humor was inescapable. Tyrus's dismantling was complete not through confrontation, but through careful observation, sharp wit, and timing. The result was immediate, undeniable, and impossible to ignore. A persona that once radiated power was now humorously exposed, leaving the audience both entertained and aware of the subtle cracks in her carefully constructed political image.